Kevin Garnett to Boston, Melo to the Knicks, Travis Outlaw to the Clippers, Giannis to the Heat. Here's the most insane trade of every year since 2000. 2000, the Patrick Ewing mega trade. So Patrick Ewing, arguably the Knicks GOAT, besides this guy, but by 2000, he's 38 and the team is clearly Allen Houston's team. So Ewing asks out after contract issues. Problem is, his contract is so huge, you just can't trade him for one guy. But the Supersonics want him, so they just keep adding teams to eventually make the trade complete. Knicks, Sonics, Lakers, Suns. 4 teams, 12 players, 5 picks. One of the biggest trades in NBA history. Seattle gets Ewing straight up. They're trying to build a real center next to Gary Payton and Vin Baker. New York gets Glenn Rice, Luke Longley, Vernon Maxwell, 3 more randoms, and 4 draft picks. Lakers get Horace Grant, Greg Foster, Chuck Person. Suns get Chris Dudley and a first rounder and cash. Basically, just there to make the money work. But this is the funny part. The Lakers just won a title and need frontcourt help. Let's just grab Horace Grant, who already has 3 rings, with Michael Jordan. Lakers go 15-1 and repeat as champs. So the Lakers somehow make out the best in the Patrick Ewing to Seattle trade. I'm so sure. Next year, 2001. 2001, the Sixers trade for Dikembe Mutombo. And this one's crazy because Philly wasn't even desperate. They were the best team in the East. Iverson and Larry Brown start the season 10-0. By the deadline, they're 41-14. Best record in the East. But their starting center, Theo Ratliff, the guy hurts his wrist and needs surgery. So Philly has a choice. Wait around for their all-star to heal, or go get somebody right now and go for it. Then, they go get somebody right now. And it's not just anyone, it's Dikembe Mutombo. 3-time Defensive Player of the Year already. February 22nd, 2001. Philly sends out Theo Ratliff, Tony Kukoc, Nazi Muhammad, and Pepe Sanchez. They get back Dikembe Mutombo. Think about that. They're trading a 27-year-old all-star center under contract for a 34-year-old center on an expiring deal. A straight-up win-now move. And of course, he's Dikembe Mutombo. He goes off. He ends the season winning DPOY for the 4th time. The first player ever to do that. AI wins MVP. Mutombo wins DPOY. McKee wins 6th Man of the Year. Larry Brown wins Coach of the Year. The first ever team to sweep all 4 awards in one season. Mutombo to the Sixers, legendary. 2002, the Pistons-Wizards star swap. This one comes completely out of nowhere. This is right before training camp. Detroit just went 50-32. They won their division. They made the 2nd round. They're not rebuilding. And then they just trade their leading scorer, Jerry Stackhouse. 27 years old, 2-time All-Star, averaged about 30 points a game 2 seasons earlier. For Richard Hamilton, 24 years old, never made an all-star team, never played in a playoff game. There's a few more players, but this is really all that mattered at the end of the day. But here's a Pistons fan reaction to the trade. Fox Sports Detroit opened its broadcast with news of an outrageous trade before cutting away to reveal an April Fool's Day prank. Surely this had to be another. A poorly timed farce. Yeah, Pistons fans were pissed. And what happens? Pistons win the 2004 championship. And you look up a list of the best Piston players ever, Rip Hamilton is ranked 9th. That's what ended up happening here. 2003, the Sonics-Bucks star swap. Another star swap. So February 2003, hours before the trade deadline, Seattle trades the greatest player in their franchise's history, Gary Payton. Their guy for 13 straight seasons, a 9-time All-Star, 9-time All-Defense. But by 2003, he's 34, and he's 1 year away from free agency. Seattle doesn't want to pay him max money at that age. So instead of losing him for nothing, they trade him to Milwaukee for Ray Allen. 27 years old, 3-time All-Star, just entering his prime. And they get 2 other players and a pick that ends up becoming Luke Ridenour. But the worst part is, the Bucks got absolutely screwed here, because the Bucks coach was George Karl, who used to coach Gary Payton in Seattle. And Payton comes in and balls out. The Bucks make the playoffs, but they did lose in the first round. Then Payton just walks in free agency that summer. He signs with the Lakers. So Milwaukee gets 34 games out of Gary Payton, And Ray Allen goes on to make 4 straight All-Star teams for the Sonics. Dunk contest legend, Ray Allen. 2004, Lakers trade Shaq. So the Lakers three-peat, they got maybe the best duo ever, Shaq and Kobe. But by 2004, their relationship is completely toxic. Shaq wants the ball in the post, Kobe wants a bigger role, and they just can't coexist anymore. And on top of that, Shaq wants another max extension. He's 32. The Lakers gotta pick a side. Kobe or Shaq. They pick Kobe. And then Shaq demands a trade. And this is the wild part. The Lakers actually wanted Dwayne Wade in the package. Miami says get the hell out of here. Instead, the Lakers get Lamar Odom and Caron Butler. And Shaq goes to Miami and immediately balls out. He finishes second in MVP voting. Wins the championship the next year. Meanwhile, the Lakers completely collapse. 34 wins. They miss the playoffs entirely. First time in over a decade. And the Lakers take like 5 more years before they win it all again. So in the long run it worked out for both. But in the moment, a Heat robbery. 2005. Hornets trade Baron Davis. So Baron Davis is 25 years old. He's a 2-time All-Star. He just led the league in steals. And New Orleans basically gives him away for Speedy Claxton and Dale Davis. No picks, no prospects, nothing. And the Hornets, they're brutal to say the least. They were 2-29 at one point. And Baron Davis is also always hurt on top of this. And honestly, year 1 after the trade, it seemed like a really whatever trade. Till year 2, the Warriors go from 13 years without the playoffs straight into upsetting the 67-win Mavericks. The first 8 seed to ever beat a 1 seed in a 7-game series. Davis drops 25 points a game in that series. He becomes the face of the Warriors We Believe team. Meanwhile, New Orleans gets nothing long term. Probably one of the more forgotten trades of the list, but one that revived one of the greatest franchises ever. 2006, the Sixers trade AI. So Allen Iverson is the face of the Sixers for over a decade, an MVP, 4 scoring titles, took the Sixers to the finals, and he's still averaging over 30 points a game. But the Sixers in 06 are a mess. They're falling apart, so AI just asks out. And every single team is trying to get him, including Minnesota. The only article I find about that is in Spanish, but that's how serious it was. But then out of nowhere, Denver swoops in, and the timing is insane. 3 days earlier, Carmelo Anthony just got suspended 15 games for that MSG brawl, mollywop Nate Robinson, and then Denver loses its best player, and immediately goes and trades for the guy ranked right below him in scoring. Iverson and Melo were literally 1 and 2 in scoring at the time. The trade goes Iverson to Denver, Philly gets back Andre Miller, Joe Smith, and 2 first-round picks. And this basically kicks off that Andre Iguodala era in Philly. And Melo and AI, they never win it all, but they definitely were an exciting duo for a little bit. 2007, Celtics acquired Kevin Garnett. So Boston just went 24-58, the second worst record in the East, the worst losing streak in franchise history. And then the draft lottery happens and it just doesn't go their way. They fall to 5. They miss out on Greg Oden and Kevin Durant. It looks like a disaster. Honestly, it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to them. Because first, they trade for Ray Allen. They give up the 5th pick, Delonte West, and Wally Szczerbiak. And that's what actually convinces KG to reconsider Boston. Because before that, KG straight up didn't want to join a rebuilding team with just Paul Pierce. But now there's 2 established stars there. So a month later, Boston goes all in, trades Al Jefferson, Ryan Gomes, Gerald Green, Sebastian Telfair, Theo Ratliff, 2 first-round picks, all for 1 player, Kevin Garnett. 12 years in Minnesota, an MVP, a 10-time All-Star, led the league in rebounding 4 straight years, the best Wolf ever, and it just works instantly. Celtics go from 24 wins to 66, the biggest single-season turnaround in NBA history. Garnett wins DPOY, the Celtics win a ring right away. The Wolves, they become the laughingstock of the league for a decade till Cat and Edwards save them. That's the 2007 trade. 2008, the Gasol trade. So Kobe just publicly asked to be traded. The guy literally went on the Stephen A. Smith show and said, the Lakers gotta trade me. And it made sense. The Lakers are trash at the time. The guy had me and you starting with him. So what did the Lakers do? Less than 3 weeks later, they get Pau Gasol, a 27-year-old all-star. And they basically gave up nothing that mattered. Kwame Brown had an expiring deal, a rookie who barely plays, a guy who was literally retired and coaching high school ball at the time, 2 late first-round picks, and the draft rights to some unknown second-round dude called Marc Gasol. That's why I called it the Gasol trade, by the way. It's kind of crazy they swapped. But the Lakers keep Kobe, keep Odom, keep Bynum, and just add an all-star on top. The Lakers go 22-5 with him the rest of the season, the number 1 seed in the West. Kobe wins his only MVP. The Lakers sweep Denver, beat Utah, beat the defending champ Spurs. They reach the finals. And Pau Gasol, a guy who's gone 0-12 in the playoffs with games with Memphis, wins 12 playoff games in his first postseason as a Laker. Although they do end up losing to Boston, the Lakers do end up winning the next 2. So yeah, trading for a team's best player in franchise history, it seems to work. 2009, Magic trade for Vince Carter. So Orlando just made the finals, 59 wins. Dwight Howard is 23 years old. He just won Defensive Player of the Year, beat the defending champ Celtics, beat LeBron's 66-win Cavs team. They came so close, and instead of running it back, Orlando decides to blow it up a little. They let Hedo Turkoglu walk in free agency. He's a guy who actually was running their offense late in games. Then they make a major trade. They traded with Courtney Lee, Rafier Alston, Tony Battle, all for Vince Carter, an 8-time All-Star, and a 21-year-old Ryan Anderson nobody was talking about. Oh, and this one's actually kind of personal. Carter grew up an hour from Orlando, so he's coming home. But he's 32 now, and the Nets are doing a fire sale because of the 2010 free agency class. So the Magic swoop in, and Orlando has a really good regular season with Carter. 59 wins again. Same record as the finals year. Sweep Charlotte, absolutely destroy Atlanta in the second round. So they start the playoffs 8-0. Then Boston happens. The Celtics take a 3-0 lead. The Magic win 2, and Boston closes it out in 6. And Carter just disappears in that series. He shot 21% from 3. And a year and a half later, Orlando trades him. And that's the entire Vince Carter Orlando Magic tenure. 2010, Heat create the Big 3. Most people probably don't even know this one was a trade, but it was, so we gotta include it. LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade, all free agents coming up in the summer, and Miami spends years setting up cap space to land all 3. All 3 were drafted top 5 in the 2003 draft. All 3 played together on Team USA, and they basically coordinated this whole thing ahead of time. Wade stays in Miami, Bosh joins him, then comes a decision. LeBron announces on live TV he's taking his talents to South Beach. I mean, Cleveland is pissed. Dan Gilbert wrote an entire letter how mad he was, but even with all that anger, Cleveland still goes and agrees to a sign and trade. They get draft picks and trade exceptions instead of nothing. Toronto does the same for Bosh, and Miami basically had to gut their whole roster to make the money work. It ended up being a 3-team trade, and of course, the Heat Big 3 make 4 finals in 4 years, win 2 rings. So yeah, one that half people don't even know was a trade. Realistically, one of the biggest trades in NBA history. Even though it's the NBA offseason, there's still plenty of action over at PrizePicks. They've got WNBA, MLB, UFC, and a ton of other sports every single day. So there's always something to watch and always a lineup to build. One pick I took is A'ja Wilson to win WNBA Defensive Player of the Year. She's already a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, and if she keeps dominating at that end of the floor, I like her chances to bring home another one. PrizePicks is really easy to use. You can pick more or less on player stats, or if you'd rather pick teams, they've got that now too. Just pick the winner, spread, or total on any game or any fight, lock in your lineup, and you're all set. And make sure to follow me on PrizePicks at 23picks so you can tell my lineups with just one click. If you're a new user, play your first $5 lineup, and if you win, you get $150 in bonus lineups. Just use code HMA when you sign up. That's code HMA on PrizePicks. Thanks again to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. Okay, back to the video. 2011, the Chris Paul LA deal. Or deals. So this one's actually 2 trades in 6 days. The first one straight up gets canceled by the league. Chris Paul is 26, one of the best point guards alive. and the Lakers and Hornets and Rockets agreed to a monster deal. Chris Paul to the Lakers, Pau Gasol to Houston, Lamar Odom, Kevin Martin, Luis Scola, and a pick to New Orleans. Until Mr. Stern says hell nah, the NBA just kills the trade. They say it's not in the Hornets' best basketball interest. Laker fans are obviously pissed, so it doesn't happen. And 6 days later, Chris Paul gets traded again, this time to the Clippers. Clippers give up Eric Gordon, Chris Kaman, Al-Farouq Aminu, and Minnesota's fully unprotected first-round pick. They get back Chris Paul, and this creates Lob City. CP3, DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin, maybe the most exciting trio like ever. So yeah, CP3 traded to LA 2 times in 6 days, both LA teams. 2012, OKC trades James Harden. So OKC just went to the finals, Durant, Harden, and Westbrook. Genuinely one of the best young cores ever, but then 4 months later, they trade Harden. Why? They couldn't agree on a contract extension. Thunder offer around 4 years, $60 million. Harden wanted the full max, so they shipped him to Houston. OKC gets Kevin Martin, Jeremy Lamb, and a bunch of first-round picks. And at the time, I guess it wasn't the worst trade ever. Harden never been an all-star, never started full-time, was literally just a really good 6-man. But Daryl Morey thought he could be more than that. And then he averages 36 points and becomes one of the best scorers ever. An MVP, and Jeremy Lamb, I don't know. He hit the shot with the Hornets. So shout out to him. But yeah, awful trade from OKC. 2013. I want to talk about awful trades though. The Celtics-Nets trade disaster. I'm calling it a disaster because it was for one team, and it wasn't the Celtics. So the Nets, they got D. Will, Joe Johnson, and Brook Lopez already. So what do they need? A small forward and a power forward. Well, Pierce and KG fit that, so they trade everything for them. Look how many picks are here. But this doesn't even show the worst part. 2 of these picks, they end up becoming Tatum and Brown. So the Nets essentially traded Tatum and Brown, 1 second round exit, and like 365 days of a 50-year-old Pierce and Garnett. I mean, you look up a list of any of the worst trades in NBA history, this is going to be right near the top every time. Sorry, Nets fans. 2014, Cavs trade for Kevin Love. So LeBron just announces he's going to Cleveland, and that instantly changes their whole plan. Now they're going all in for a championship. So weeks later, the Cavs trade for Kevin Love. I mean, Love's coming off averaging 26 and 12. And what's even crazier, a coincidence, the Cavs just got the first overall pick. They took Andrew Wiggins, so now they got the perfect trade to get one of the best players in the NBA to team up with LeBron. Just adds up perfectly. Now they got LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love. And of course, they won the 2016 ring. So Cleveland, the 2014 trade was for you. 2015, the 14 mega trade. So 2015, there was no real crazy trades. But there was one trade where some really good players got traded left and right. So Phoenix has a crowded point guard room from Goran Dragic, Isaiah Thomas, Eric Bledsoe. They're all just fighting for minutes. So Phoenix just blows the thing up like the damn Joker at the hospital. The guy they want though, Brandon Knight. Another basically point guard. Makes sense. So the Suns actually do 2 trades. And this turns into a 14 trade. It looks like this. The Suns receive Brandon Knight, who's genuinely a borderline all-star this year. Milwaukee receives Michael Carter-Williams, who just won Rookie of the Year. Philadelphia received a first and JaVale McGee. But the sneaky part, the Celtics got Isaiah Thomas. So the whole Suns, who want to trade one of their point guards, they traded the one that finishes top 5 in MVP voting a couple years later. And the headline of the trade that day was Knight and Carter-Williams. Average Suns move. 2016. The Serge Ibaka disaster class. So this one isn't really about the trade itself, although the trade was awful, but also it's about what OKC does afterward. So Ibaka's 26, one of the best two-way bigs in the league, and OKC, they trade Ibaka to Orlando. They get back Oladipo, Ilyasova, and the draft rights to Domantas Sabonis, who Orlando literally just drafted a couple minutes before this. And this looked like a fine trade at the time, but then watch what Sam Presti does with it. Because Ilyasova barely plays for OKC, gets flipped immediately into Jeremy Grant. Oladipo and Sabonis stick around for a season, Then Sam Presti trades both of them straight up for Paul George. Then 2 years later, Presti trades Paul George again, this time to the Clippers for SGA and 5 first-round picks. So the trade in the first place, Ibaka for Oladipo and Sabonis, who both end up being All-NBA players, good deal for OKC. They end up with the guy who gets them SGA. Better deal. Nice job, Presti. 2017, a superstar point guard swap. So Kyrie just hit the shot that won Cleveland a championship, then asks out. Wants to be the guy in his own team. So the Celtics want to scoop up Kyrie, and they sent back Isaiah Thomas, who genuinely just had the best season of his career. 29 points a game, finished 5th in MVP voting, led the Celtics to the number 1 seed in the East. But Boston sees a 5'9" guy with a hip injury, and they don't trust it. Absolutely snaked him, by the way. So Kyrie goes to Boston. He has a really good regular season, 24-5, and then he tears his knee before the playoffs. Isaiah Thomas in Cleveland, it just falls apart. Misses half the season from a recovering hip injury. He only plays 15 games for the Cavs. Then he's traded to the Lakers just a couple months later. He's just never the same player again. So the two teams that were literally the top 2 seeds in the East, they trade their franchise point guards for each other, and neither guy ends up happy where he ended up. 2018, the rental trade. So Kawhi in San Antonio basically fall apart over his injury rehab. He plays 9 games that season. The Spurs want him to play. He wants to play 2K. This fool does not want to hoop. And really where he wanted to go was Los Angeles, his home. Until Toronto comes in. And the thing is, Toronto knew this probably was a rental. He was a free agent the next year, but they don't care. They send out DeMar DeRozan, that actual face of the franchise, their all-time leader in points, games, minutes. Toronto also sends out Jakob Poeltl and a protected pick. They get back Kawhi and Danny Green. I mean, this is a gamble. Everybody knew it, but Toronto says F it. And Kawhi comes in and just goes off. 26.6 points per game, and then the playoffs happen. Kawhi averages over 30 a game. He hits the Game 7 buzzer beater over Philly, beats Golden State in the championship, gives Toronto their first ring ever, and then just leaves. And then comes back 8 years later in 2026. So yeah, Kawhi to Toronto is 2018's. 2019, AD to LA. So AD wants out of New Orleans. This guy's wearing a shirt that says, "That's all, folks." And he wants the Lakers specifically. And after months of negotiation, they get an actual mega trade done. AD goes to LA. Pelicans get Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, the number 4 pick in that year's draft, and a bunch of other draft picks. But post-trade, the Lakers dominate. They go 52-19, the number 1 seed, and they win the championship that very season. And then in New Orleans, Ingram becomes an all-star and wins MIP. Lonzo becomes a solid starter. They flip DeAndre Hunter into more picks, all so they can build around Zion. One of the biggest trades of all time, honestly. 2020, the Jrue Holiday 4-team mega trade. So Milwaukee just had one of its most disappointing playoff exits ever. They have the best record in the league. Giannis won MVP and DPOY, and they still lose to Miami in the second round. So the Bucks, they got to go all in to assure Giannis that they're competing. So then what do? They get the Pelicans, Nuggets, and Thunder on the phone and make a 600-player trade. Milwaukee gets Jrue Holiday. They give up Eric Bledsoe, George Hill, 4 picks. The Pelicans, they get a lot. They get Steven Adams, who they don't take advantage of ever having. But they do get Bledsoe and all these picks too. OKC just sits there and usual and collects assets. Denver, whatever. Less than a month later though, Giannis signs the Supermax, the biggest contract in history at the time. He basically confirms that the trade convinced him to stay. And the very next season, the Bucks win it all. And Jrue to Giannis alley-oop, one of the most legendary plays of all time. 2021, the James Harden Nets deal. So Houston basically implodes over the summer. Their coach leaves, their GM resigns. Westbrook asks out and gets traded. Harden watches all this happen and says, "I don't think this could be fixed." And less than 24 hours later, he's traded too. And Brooklyn already has an elite duo. They have KD and Landry Shamet. and Kyrie, I guess. But they decide Harden is the missing piece. And Brooklyn basically gives up every future first they have, 7 total, for one guy. Houston gets 1 million picks, but the forgotten part of this trade, Jared Allen ends up in Cleveland somehow. I don't know how they pulled it off, but quick shout out to them for that. But yeah, KD, Kyrie, Harden, a failed big three. Only 8 regular season games with all 3 healthy, and then the whole thing just falls apart within a year. Harden gets traded the next season for Ben Simmons. Jared Allen becomes an all-star in Cleveland. Just a mess for the Nets. 2022. Donovan Mitchell goes to the unexpected destination. So literally everyone, me, you, Donovan Mitchell himself, the Cavs GM, we all thought Donovan Mitchell was going to the Knicks. But after weeks of rumors, the Knicks, they don't want to give up the haul that the Jazz want. So the Cavs come in and get a deal done out of nowhere. The Cavs give up Colin Sexton, Larry Markkinen, Ochai Agbaji, and 5 picks. And Cleveland keeps their whole young core and adds Donovan Mitchell on top of that. So they got Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, and Allen. And this trade is really about everyone in the world thought Donovan Mitchell was a Knick, and just randomly, he ends up a Cav. Just random, but a giant deal. 2023, the KD Suns trade. So a couple months before this trade, KD tells the world he wants to stay a Brooklyn Net. Then the Nets ship Kyrie to Dallas, and 4 days later, KD requests a trade. And Phoenix goes all in. They immediately ship Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and 4 picks, all for KD. And it's actually a 4-team trade, but it's kind of pointless. And Brooklyn gets a pretty good return, honestly. Bridges immediately breaks out, averages over 26 points a game after the trade. Then they trade him for 5 more picks, and Brooklyn now owns every single pick 1 through 30 in the 2034 NBA draft. 2024, the Knicks-Wolves swap. So this one, it low-key came out of nowhere. Literally days before training camp, nobody thought Minnesota was trading Cat, their franchise player for 9 years. But the new CBA changed everything. Towns was supposed to make $220 million on his new Supermax. But Minnesota didn't want to go to the second apron, so they make the move. The Knicks get Karl-Anthony Towns and the draft rights to James Nagy, current day college basketball player, by the way. But Minnesota gets Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, and a protected first-round pick. And honestly, Dante was a huge part of this trade. He just had the Knicks record for most threes in a season. And the Knicks, they wanted to keep him with the Nova Knicks, but the Wolves wouldn't do the trade without Dante. But ultimately, the Knicks won the championship this year, so I guess it worked out decently. 2025, the 7-team trade. The most teams ever in a trade in history, basically a fourth of the league. But the main part, the Suns end the Beal, Booker, and KD big three. And Houston wants KD. They trade Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, and the 10th overall pick, and a bunch of second-round picks for Kevin Durant and Clint Capella. But the crazy part, this trade just kept getting bigger and bigger. Draft night trades, sign-in trades, until it eventually became a 7-team trade. The first one in NBA history. Just look at this. I don't even know what to say. Like, what the hell are the Nets doing there? Future second-round compensation? Or Rocco Zikarsky? Who? I don't know. The trade should end here, but since it became a 7-team trade, of course it had to be the craziest trade of the year. 2026. The Giannis saga finally ends. Jaylen Brown put up an argument as the craziest trade here, but if a trade includes Giannis, you gotta pick that one. Giannis spends 13 seasons in Milwaukee, wins 2 MVPs, a depoy, a championship, becomes the greatest Buck ever, but after 94 years of saying they're gonna trade Giannis, they finally do. And the trade, Giannis and Bobby Portis for Tyler Hero, Jaime Jaquez, Khalil Ware, Nate Ament, and a bunch of picks. So Giannis and Bam pair up, one of the best defensive front courts in the league, and we still don't know how it's going to work out, but that's what I'm going with as the craziest trade of the year so far. But if you guys enjoyed this, I genuinely would appreciate if you could subscribe. It's the only thing that lets me know you guys want me to keep posting on here. Thank you guys for watching.